buy from a developer, firstly, you will be protected by the National Credit Act and all its provisions. This is because the sale of property is his normal business and the properties form his stock in trade. In that regard, the Consumer Protection Act applies to the transaction. This gives you various rights and imposes certain obligations on the seller, who is the developer. When you buy from a private individual who is selling his home, the Consumer Protection Act does not apply. In other words, you are liable in terms of the sale agreement, which forms the contract and the basis of the transaction. Your rights and obligations are spelled out in the sale agreement, and you are not protected by the Consumer Protection Act. That means that if you breach the sale, you may lose your deposit and you may be penalized, and the seller can sue you for damages. If the sale is subject to you obtaining a bond, then you have no obligations until that condition has been fulfilled. But any time thereafter, if you breach, then the contract governs the rights and obligations of the seller and the buyer. Another point of buying from a developer is that a developer is a VAT vendor, and that means that the tax imposed on the transaction is value-added tax, or VAT. Once there is VAT imposed on a transaction, SARS cannot tax you again in the form of transfer duty. So when you buy from a developer, there will be no transfer duties payable. However, there are still attorney's fees. And this is something that many people misunderstand. Because there's no transfer duty payable does not mean that the attorney does not charge fees. And fees will be payable unless the developer advertises his development to include all transfer costs. The buyer is always the party who pays the costs of transfer and his bond costs, and as such he is protected by the conveyancing tariff. He may not be charged more than the tariff, but in addition the attorney also charges disbursements such as the deeds office fees and postages and petties and deeds office searches, and all of these are extra costs on top of the fee, which is the attorney's fee.